but it's crushing to me. I mean, it's so painful to consistently look at the Steelers and even the Ravens drafts and just be like, what about me? I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships. The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. Hey, welcome into JUCK on Bucks on a Monday morning. Thanks so much for joining me. We got plenty to get to today, guys. The portal closed on Friday. That means nobody can enter anymore. Sigh of relief at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center as they went through this whole thing and kept every single scholarship player on the roster. Pretty impressive. Speaks a ton to the culture. I'm sure it wasn't without any struggle, as Ryan Day said that he was feeling a little, I don't know, sounded like he had a little headache, a little hungover maybe, because the beer went down cold on Friday night when the portal closed for him, which, kind of would point to maybe he had a lot of stress, but he was able to handle it. They were able to handle it, and they kept everybody in the building except for some walk-ons. When we talk about those walk-ons, we're talking about guys that potentially would have been cut off the roster when the settlement goes through, and they have to cut those 20 guys. There's 20 spots that are no longer going to be there, no longer available. And there are some guys that are going to be casualties of that. That's what's going on right now in the settlement that is the snag for the judge. She's put it on hold right now, and she's looking for the NCAA and the people that are suing, representing those clients, the students that, will be cut and thrown out of all sports, to grandfather that in and let the ones that are currently there stay over that limit, which is going to be 105 in football, but it's also decreasing in other sports as well. So there's like 20,000 kids that are going to get left out. And that's currently what they're waiting on. Now, my hope is none of those guys in the transfer portal left ahead of time based on that decision if they didn't want to be. And maybe they give them an avenue to come back, though I don't know how feasible that is. But currently the NCAA is pushing back on that. They don't want these kids to be able to stay. And I think that is disgusting. But, that's where we're at with them. Anyway, Big Ten, SEC dominate the draft as per usual, but the SEC edged out the Big Ten barely. And usually it's a pretty decent margin. This year it was 79 SEC, 71 to Big Ten. The talent gap closed considerably over the last 10 years and then really closed since the transfer portal. So, it's not just true on the field. Like, we're seeing the results in the NFL draft as well. But some really good news for a lot of Ohio State Buckeyes. Let's get a quick recap of where all those Buckeyes went in the draft over the weekend. As we saw in the first round, Emeka go to the Buccaneers at number 19. I think that's a great fit for him. You got two, aging stars, wide receivers, and Evans and Godwin, and they bring in Emeka, but not just him. I think he's going to be a great pair with a guy who didn't have a really good combine, as Tez Johnson out of Oregon gets drafted by the Bucs. He was 154 pounds at the combine. He ran it was a 4.56 or something. It wasn't a good 40 for a guy his size. If you're going to be that size, you need to be a burner, and he wasn't. And that's why he went so late, like 7th round. But the thing I love about this kid is after the Rose Bowl, Will was given an interview, and he sat there and waited till Will was done with his interview, stood behind him. Will turned around, wished him luck, said they need you, your team needs you, you're so good for them, whatever. Just give him encouragement on a day where they just got absolutely embarrassed. And Tez Johnson was classy enough to do that. So that speaks very highly of his character to me. And then pairing him up with Emeka, wishing the world for those two down at Tampa Bay. Then we had Donovan Jackson. To me, I don't want to say most valuable, most irreplaceable player on the 2024 championship team. If you take him out of the equation, outside of the quarterback's always going to be that kind of dude. Take the quarterback out of the conversation. If you lose Donovan, I don't think you can win a national championship. I think he's the most irreplaceable, let's put it that way, the most irreplaceable guy on that team. I think you can get away with taking away any other one guy. and you could still win it. I don't think you can do that without Donovan Jackson. So he gets vastly rewarded for doing what he did, sliding out to tackle, which he didn't really want to do. He told us that later. And he did such a great job. Gets drafted by the Vikings at number 24. And I was shocked when he got drafted in the first round. So he's going to go block for JJ McCarthy in the NFC North. 2 times a year, he'll be going up against fellow first rounder Tyleik Williams, who goes number 28 to the Detroit Lions. And how about that? Those two will square off twice a year. And Tyleik, a really good situation for him, as the only knock ever on Tyleik has been his consistent effort. And Dan Campbell is the perfect guy for him and what they've got going on up there, which is, football guys, effort. I think he's going to be great there. And it was pretty interesting that the Michigan folks, they get Tyleik up to their pro franchise. The Ohio State folks, one of our Ohio franchises, gets their guy in Mason Graham. Then we had, with the final pick in the first round, Josh Simmons goes number 32 to the Chiefs. And we know the Chiefs need offensive line help. We all saw that very glaringly obvious against Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. Josh Simmons, maybe the Buckeye in this class that I feel the least attached to, despite the fact that he was here multiple years. He was injured last year. It was a terrible injury. That sucks. But he chose to leave the team, didn't travel with the team, wasn't with them throughout the rest of the season. And I just can't stand that. I couldn't stand it when Nick Bosa did it. And it's just, I don't know. It makes me feel a certain type of way about you. That's just my opinion on it. But I wish the best for him. And of those 4 first rounders, I was stunned, to be honest, guys. I thought there was, 2 was my hope. I was hoping we'd get 2. To get 4, I thought there was a shot, an outside shot, but a shot that if Emeka fell, and you heard a lot of people talking about his speed and concerns about his speed up until the 40 time. But even still, does he play fast enough? I don't know. I was maybe psyching myself out, trying to get myself ready. What if he really falls? Not to get so mad about it. But nobody fell. People rose. In the Buckeyes, 4 first-round draft picks, second most ever for Ohio State. And the narrative about this Ohio State team was it lacks that top-end talent with those older guys. Obviously, you had Caleb and you had JJ, but the older guys, there wasn't that first-round talent. And even as the draft started, the Michigan folk, they get a couple guys off the board early, and they're running their mouths. Ohio State ends up beating them with 4 first-rounders. But that's how people were talking about these two teams. Michigan got a bunch of first-round talent. Ohio State doesn't have that, but they're deeper. Not so much. 4 first-rounders for these Buckeyes. Fantastic news. Great for recruiting, great for the program as you move forward. In addition to that, Ohio State, the program, the number 1 all-time program in the JUCK on Bucks rankings, but the program with the most first-round picks in the history of the NFL draft, they extend their lead as the other teams in that top 5, only one of them had at least 1 first-rounder. That was Alabama with 2. So I'll pull that up now. All-time first-round picks. Ohio State, 95 now. USC, 85. So the Buckeyes up 10 on USC, and going to take them an awful long time to try to close that gap. Certainly not happening anytime soon. Alabama with 83. So the Buckeyes extend that lead. They were up by 10. Now they're up by 12. Notre Dame at 71. And again, they're out of reach. Miami at 67, maybe the most impressive to me. They're on that list outside of Ohio State because Miami, when we look at the history of those are 4 blue bloods up on top of Miami. These guys have been putting dudes in the first round since the draft first started in 1936. Miami wasn't playing football like that with first round type guys till the 80s. So to be able to climb up that list, pretty impressive stuff. Now, as we move back to the draft, I think the more interesting thing for me was if you had told me that if there was 4 guys in the first round, I would have said, okay, at least Jack or JT, one of them snuck into there. No Jack, no JT in the first round. As you move into the second round, our first Buckeye off the board, Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins goes to my Browns, and they did it after they picked Schlesinger, the linebacker from UCLA, and I was kind of bummed. I thought that was a bit of a stretch. But then they turn around and pick Quinshon. Now, I'm never going to complain about drafting a Buckeye. I love it. I love Quinshawn. My personal take, I would have taken Travion over Quinshawn, but for the Browns, I think it's a great spot for Quinshawn for what they're looking for right there. Then 2 picks later, Mike Vrabel and his Patriots take Travion, which makes me really happy the way Vrabel did that. And then we see the Colts draft JT, which gives us 7 Buckeyes in rounds 1 and 2. The all-time record in rounds 1 and 2 for one school was Alabama with 8, so the Buckeyes fall just 1 short of that record. Then we move on. Day number 3. Was it day number 3? No, round 3. Actually, it was day 3 because round 3 we didn't have any. So day 3, round 4, we start off Cody Simon. Cody Simon gets drafted to the Cardinals, and he joins Donnie. Not Donnie. All right, moving on to day 3. We've got Cody Simon coming off the board first, and he goes to Arizona. He goes to Arizona, which is becoming like a little mini Buckeye, a little Buckeye sanctuary. You've got Marvin. You've now got Cody Simon. They've got Matt Jones there. Obviously, Paris Johnson's there. Justin Fry's coaching the offensive line. And then they bring in Josh Fryer on an undrafted free agent contract, and they draft Denzel later. So we're talking a ton of Buckeyes at Arizona, a NFL franchise that I think I'm like least familiar with outside of maybe the Rams. It's the teams out there I just don't see a lot of. Arizona is not a big winner, so we never hear much from them. I'll make it a point to keep up on Arizona now because they got a ton of Buckeyes, and I love that. And I think maybe what they're trying to do is looking at the Eagles, how the Eagles have been with Georgia and Alabama, and they're focusing in on, all right, I don't think anybody's representing Ohio State like that. Let's just make them our school, and we'll be sure to draft a couple of those dudes every year. It's what it looks like to me, and I love it. So Arizona, that's our horse. Then we've got Carolina taking Lathan Ransom, and I thought that was great. But at this point, you had Emeka, Donnie, Tyleek, Simmons, Quinn, Trey, JT, Cody, and Lathan. That's 9 guys off the board, and we still had not heard Jack Sawyer's name. And if you told me of all the guys on that team, Jack Sawyer was going to be the 10th guy drafted, I mean, I can't tell you what I would have bet against that. Like, that's just, it's still mind-blowing to say those words to me. I know he doesn't have the best traits that they look for. He's got shorter arms. He's not super explosive, not the most flexible, not the most bend. But man, that's a guy with loaded with intangibles, right? Everything else off the field, the leadership, like all that stuff, you got all that. You got crazy effort and crazy motor. You've got a ton of games against high-level college talent and a ton of production against high-level college talent. All those things still matter to me, and they still matter to the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course. In the very next pick after Lathan, the Steelers select Jack. And to me, that feels like the most Steeler pick ever is them getting Jack. Because all my life, I've just been so irritated and jealous of not all my life, since I was maybe 18, since their draft picks. Like, they always seem to draft in a way that makes me jealous. And they usually draft a lot of Ohioans and Buckeyes. They came back and drafted another Ohioan, Caleb Johnson from Iowa. And he is, he kind of reminds me of another running back that they once drafted long ago from Ohio who went to a different Big Ten school because Ohio State didn't offer him. And that's Le'Veon Bell. And I know some of you are Steeler fans and you're really happy about Jack. I'm happy for you. I think it'll be a perfect fit for him. Obviously, he'll be loved and he'll excel. But it's crushing to me. I mean, it's so painful to consistently look at the Steelers and even the Ravens drafts and just be like, what about me? Then Ty Hamilton goes to the Rams. And I think that's a great pick for the Rams. He is a heck of a value in the 5th round. Jordan Hancock then goes to the Bills. And then we go to the 5th round. We finally see Denzel Burke off the board. Denzel Burke goes to the Cardinals. They also drafted Will Johnson. They draft Will Johnson early. They get Denzel later. So Will Johnson out of Michigan, Denzel Burke. This argument between who was the better corner of those two was going on between Ohio State and Michigan fans before the season, actually all last off season and into this season. And it's wild as now those two and Will Johnson and Marvin Harrison, who, they had a back and forth. Those guys all playing together in Arizona. Love what Arizona did, drafting a ton of defensive players too. It looks like a defense that could, potentially have some stalwarts in this class. I think Cody Simon's a great pick. I would have loved to have him for the Browns. But anyway, Arizona looking good and a whole lot of fun. Unfortunately for Denzel, I think that one game against Oregon hurt him so much. Like that combined with some inconsistencies really exposed some things that a lot of people couldn't get out of their heads. And I heard some guys like Todd McShay on a show talking about, I just can't get that game out of my head. And that's incredibly unfortunate, man. You never want your worst moment to be the one that people are making big decisions off of. But unfortunately for Denzel, it was that, I think. But he gets to start it over in Arizona, and him and Will, they could have a really good secondary. After Denzel, we finally see Will Howard, the last Buckeye drafted. And I love Will. The fact that he went to Pittsburgh and gets to stay in his home state from, I don't remember the name of the town, Dannonsville, somethingville. I don't know, but he wanted to go to Penn State. I think he's a Steelers fan. He gets to play at Pittsburgh. And I think that's really cool for him. Even though I can't stand Pittsburgh, I think that's awesome for Will. And to have him and Jack, and you think back to their moment at the Texas game after Jack's playing together, that's really cool for them. So I love it. Again, more jealousy towards Pittsburgh, but a really good day for our Buckeyes. Now, when we talk about the record, that was 14 Buckeyes drafted. The record was 15 set by Georgia. Buckeyes got 14. And when we look at the all-time record, you had Georgia in 2022 getting 15, Ohio State in 25, 14. Ohio State ties their record previously held by them in 04 with 14. LSU also got it in 20. And then you go down to Georgia in 25. Just this draft, Georgia had 13 players drafted. They tied Michigan from last year, who had 13. Then with 12, Alabama in 2018, Ohio State in 2016. But there's one program on that list 3 times. There's only one other program on there twice, and that's Georgia. Everybody else just one time. And it is pretty clear why the Buckeyes stand out in this category. They consistently pump out more first-round talent than anybody else. The fact that Will Howard dropped so low, though, when I look at some of the quarterbacks taken below him, that Will interviewed great. There were people who's talked about that combine being terrible, and I also heard NFL guys talk about that combine being good. We know he had a great pro day. He definitely has some limitations with his arm, but the way he improved so much throughout last year, I would have thought, looking at him, you can't teach that size and athleticism. That's hard to find. And then with an arm you can work with and the intangibles that he brings, I think he's a pretty rare prospect. And I think the Steelers really got a great value getting him as late as they did. So hopefully we see him take the league by storm. Unfortunately, Seth McLaughlin did not get drafted. Seth McLaughlin, I didn't think we were going to tie this record at 15. And I didn't think we were going to tie this record because I thought there was 15 Buckeyes going to get drafted. And then I'm thinking, okay, every time I go into a draft, I think there are this many guys that are going to get drafted, and there's usually one less for whatever reason. And I didn't think it would be any one of those specific guys. It just felt like to me, yeah, that's usually what happens. I'm just going to go ahead and stick with this. So I didn't think they'd tie the record, and they did come one short because of Seth's injury. Seth goes to the Bengals, and I'm so happy that the kid from Buford, Georgia decided to stay in Cincinnati. But the fact that he didn't get drafted was infuriating. Guy won the Remington Award. I understand it's an Achilles, and sometimes people don't come back all the way from those. But to say that you can't take a flyer on this guy in the 6th round, you'd rather take a flyer on somebody else, it just seems nonsensical to me. But at about the 6th round, when he hadn't been drafted yet, I was kind of rooting that he wouldn't get drafted for his sake so that he could go pick the best situation for him. He chose that to be Cincinnati. So happy for that. As a Browns fan, I get to see him a couple times a year. As a Bengals fan, some of you are, I'm sure, you guys get to have him. And that is the only Buckeye that the Bengals added that I'm aware of right now. Then, of course, you had Josh Fryer, sign on with Arizona. G. Scott Jr., Mike Vrabel comes through for him, brings him over there. Guys that have transferred out, when we talk about the quarterbacks in this draft, Kyle McCord got drafted by the Steelers late. And then we saw Quinn Ewers get drafted by the Dolphins. Also, Julian Fleming signed on as an undrafted free agent with the Packers. Now, Quinn Ewers, man, this guy turned down like big time offers to come play in the NFL, multiple $4 million offers. And he's going to make, I think, like 0.8 or $800,000 for his rookie year, which, forget about the money. I just hope he gets an opportunity. I really like Quinn Ewers. I understand he's a pretty limited quarterback, but a borderline, not even worth a draft pick was kind of stunning to me. Quinn was roommates with Jack, and those two came out of high school as top 5 players in the country. Two guys that I certainly thought were going to be high round draft picks. Remember, coming into last year, people were talking about Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers as the two guys coming out in Milroe that might be the first 3 picks off the board. Pretty wild the way these evaluations twist and turn. When you get to draft day, I can't remember a year where so many big name players that they talk about, these people that talk about the draft, were so far off, but they sure were. But when we count all those former Buckeyes and Buckeyes, there are so many teams that got a new Buckeye. We're talking 16 different NFL teams have a Buckeye last year or a former Buckeye from this class on their team. If you take out Fleming, Ewers, and McCord, you've got 13 teams that got themselves a 2024 national championship Buckeye on their team, which is pretty cool. We get to see them spread out throughout the league. I love that. So I can always have a rooting interest whenever I see a team that has a Buckeye on it, which that's how I always find my rooting interest in the NFL if it's not a Browns game. But as a Browns fan, obviously I hate Pittsburgh. Really jealous of the Steelers draft. Jealous that they got Jack. He's going to look good in that uniform. I'll give him that. Love Denzel and Cody going to Arizona and Fryer. Almost every single one of their picks was defense. Walter Nolan, great pick. Will Johnson, then Jordan Birch, the stud defensive end from Oregon, then Cody Simon. They get a safety from Nevada, and then a guard from Texas. Some real potential there for their defense, so that should be pretty fun watching them. Now, all right, here's a little interesting tidbit that I just realized. So when I started this show, I did an episode about Ohio State should be number 1 heading into the season, the odds-on favorite, not Georgia. And it was like the first big video I had. It was getting spread all around. I was all excited. And then I realized from the comments that it was getting spread because it was Georgia fans trolling me. Like they were spreading it. It was getting spread down there. And they were all having a good laugh that this dumb Ohio guy could actually think Ohio State should be favored over Georgia entering the season. Of course, looking back, they absolutely should have been. And I certainly got my win there. I got the W there. But Ohio State did hold those odds as the odds-on favorite to win the national championship for a brief time. Georgia ends up getting it back. Not the point, really. We'll call them 1-1, right? So Ohio State, Georgia were 1-1 because at one point, both held the odds. But after them, you had, in order, Texas, Oregon, and Ole Miss. We're after Georgia and Ohio State. When we look at how many players got drafted from each team, Ohio State was first with 14. Georgia was second with 13. Texas was third with 12. Oregon was fourth with 10. And Ole Miss was fifth with 8. The exact same order that they were predicted odds-on favorite to win the national championship is how many draft picks they had on each team. How crazy is that? That's pretty crazy to me. Like, it's all about the players, number one, right? So we know that. It is all about the players. But to have those guys in the same exact order that they were, expected to win the national championship, pretty funny. Now, if you weren't with me last year, it was the first year doing the show during the season. I don't get to keep up a ton with the NFL because the way we do the show, I've got to watch all the college football games. Like last year, we would do Saturday, the live post-game show. Then Monday, It would be me and Chris, and we'd recap all the weekend's action from all over the country. Then Tuesday, it was a little more thorough breakdown with a rewatch of the Ohio State game, some more thoughts on that, the previous game. Wednesday, we would talk about Ryan Day's press conference on Tuesday, anything interesting or going around from around the country. And then we're moving into the following game on the end of Wednesday's show. And then Thursday, a little preview of next week's game. Friday, we're talking about all of college football again, including the Buckeyes. How are the rest of the games around the country affecting Ohio State? What's our rooting interest as Buckeye fans in some of these primetime games, et cetera? And then we're going through each time slot, each viewing slot, which games are the most interesting, making picks against the spread. Finish those picks plus 14, one-unit games, 14 units up. So we had a smashing season, but that means it takes me all Saturday and Sunday to watch all the games. And I usually clear about 16 games on the weekend because now we can watch those games like in 30 minutes, just play after play after play. But it takes me all Sunday, which means I miss all the NFL action, right? I usually miss it. The Browns game playing in the background doesn't really count as watching it, but it kind of ruins my Sunday. But this year, I have got to figure out something else to do because I am so interested in what the Browns are doing. I'm so interested in the Cardinals. Like the Browns just became one of the most interesting stories in sport right now. I said it the other day on the show, but my buddy from Scotland, and this is not a friend I've met through JUCK on Bucks, but I was talking to my buddy Dave on here in the live show, and he brought that up. This is a buddy from Scotland, lives in Scotland, obviously knows I'm a Browns fan, and he sent me a screenshot of Shador to the Browns. And this guy doesn't follow NFL football. Like this is a big story. So I love the excitement of that. That makes me happy. So as Buckeye fans, we have obviously divided loyalties in the NFL. Browns, Bengals, Steelers. I think the Browns are the biggest, then the Bengals, then the Steelers, but I think it's close. I think it's pretty close. Anyway, the point is we've got all three, and we're all going to be rooting for the Cardinals a little bit as our secondary team, I think, next year. But since we got all three, I wanted to go over each draft and grade them. The Bengals, the fans of the Bengals who joined me here for the live show on Thursday night were not happy with Shamar Stewart in the first. And then round two, Dylan Fairchild, a 25-year-old linebacker. I'm not really thrilled with that pick, though I think he's a really good player. Then they add Barrett Carter from Clemson, another linebacker in the fourth. Jalen Rivers, a guard in the fifth, and Taj Brooks, a pretty good running back in the sixth. I thought that was a pretty good value there. I like Barrett. I like Fairchild. I like Shamar Stewart. He could be a star, but overall, a 25-year-old linebacker in the second, like I just think it's a bad idea. Ultimately, I give the Bengals a C. That's my grade for the Bengals. The Steelers, they got Derek Harmon in round one, who I think is a total unit to stick in the middle of that defense. Big old dog from Oregon, if you don't remember the name. Poor kid's mom was on life support before the draft. I think that she was comatose, but she died after the draft, which is just a horrible story. So certainly rooting for him. Then the Steelers go and they get Caleb Johnson from Iowa. That's an Ohio boy. And reminds me a lot of Le'Veon Bell, another Ohio boy who played at another Big Ten school because he didn't get recruited by Ohio State, even though Caleb Johnson said he would not have come to Ohio State. Then you get Jack Sawyer, which was an incredible value pick, I thought, in the fourth round. I think he's a great fit for Pittsburgh. He just, everything about it feels Pittsburgh. They get another steal with Will Howard, really high value. Carson Bruner out of Washington. Dante Kent out of Central Michigan, a corner I have no idea about. But all in all, when you add Harmon, Caleb Johnson, Jack Sawyer, Will Howard, I think the Steelers draft was a smashing success. Absolutely give it an A. All right, let's get to the Browns draft pick. The Browns start off with the trade. They drop out of that number 2 pick, give it to Jacksonville to drop to number 5, and then they pick up Jacksonville's first-round pick next year and a second-round pick this year. The trade value, like if it's not a quarterback you're after at number 2, it's not a transcendent player most of the time. So I'm good with it. I thought it was amazing for the Browns. It gives them an opportunity to trade up next year where they clearly are aiming for a quarterback in that draft. So Should be a better pool of quarterbacks. They didn't have a quarterback they wanted it to. Trade out of it. Go ahead. What they got from Jacksonville, I thought they totally fleeced them. They used that pick on Mason Graham, who is a guy who's terrorized the Big Ten. 6'4", 300, really quick, really productive, 45 tackles from the inside. It's a hell of a lot of tackles. And then they come back early in the second round and take Carson Schwessinger, former walk-on linebacker at UCLA. He's a big linebacker. He's fast, led the country in tackles with 90. It was a stretch to pick him that early, I thought. But I like the player. Their second pick in the second round, they take Quinshon Judkins. I'm always going to be excited about getting a Buckeye on the Browns, and I think he'll be really productive. I think it's a good fit for him. I would have preferred Trey. Nonetheless, I'm happy about it. Then another what I consider to be pretty controversial pick, drafting Harold Fannin from Bowling Green. Now, Harold Fannin's from Canton McKinley, and I'm never going to be mad about drafting a local dude. But we are talking about a tight end who is undersized. This guy's G. Scott size, 6'3", 240. And if you are that size, buddy, you better be fast. And he's not. He's versatile. You can kind of play him as a slot. In college, he's got good hands. He was super productive, even productive against the better competition, Penn State, Texas A&M. He was huge to that offense, and they kind of made him the focal point of the offense. But he's not one of these guys that runs a bad 40 time, but he plays real fast. Like, this isn't a crappy 40 time, but look at the game speed. Like, he plays like he's runs up 4.7, and he does. And that to me makes it a little sketchy when you're not going to be a great blocker. You're not particularly big. So I thought that was a little bit, I don't know. I'm certainly rooting for him, a little shaky about it. Then they draft Dylan Gabriel in the third, which is the biggest head scratcher maybe of the draft. This guy is a late round flyer or an undrafted free agent in my book. He's undersized. He's got a noodle arm. He's somewhat athletic. 6-year collegiate quarterback. I don't anticipate him ever starting the game. We roasted him mercilessly for that clip at the Rose Bowl where he's sitting there talking about why do we play on natural grass? We need to play in the sun, nice grass. Like, why do we do it to ourselves? And then
I think we should play more football on nice grass instead of the artificial stuff. And the more sun, the better. Why do we do it to ourselves? Like, do fans want to sit in the snow and the rain? And let's just make arenas. Let's make domes. Let's do grass. Let's do.
And then on the phone call, he looked like he could not possibly care less. Like he was talking to the phone. They pass it around to the coaches and the front office guys. And he's just like, yeah, let's do it. Okay.
That's great, man. We're so happy to have you. Yeah, well, we obviously did put all the work in for a reason. We were hoping this moment was going to come, but we're fired up for you. What, are you going to bring those for us?
Like, yeah, let's do it. Okay. Like, that's not my dude. No way. Anyway, they draft this guy in the third round. I don't have a plausible reason for it, but he's a Brown now, so I guess I got to get behind him. They end up getting really good value with Dylan Sampson, I think, in the sixth round, running back out of Tennessee. Really good running back, led the SEC in rushing, but he ran in a wide open offense with huge lanes, didn't really have to create on his own. I like him as a running back. I'd have been okay with it, but I don't like drafting 2 running backs in one draft. How many times do we see a guy like Jerome Ford just pop out of nowhere in the NFL? Happens all the time. So wasting another pick, not wasting it. You got a good player, but spending another pick on a running back, I didn't think. You got no offensive lineman. I always want one offensive lineman. But to finish it, you obviously get Shedeur Sanders. And when you get Shedeur Sanders, it makes the Dylan Gabriel pick look totally ridiculous. Now you got 2 rookie quarterbacks, one of them drafted in the 3rd, and the one drafted in the 5th is the better prospect. And it looks like the owner stepped in and made you do it. You could see it all over their faces.
Is it reality in regards to Shedeur and Deion? Deion's not going to interfere. He's not going to be calling the coach. He's not going to be commenting about Shedeur while he's in Colorado. Lou, I think there's a lot of just fake news out there surrounding the Sanders.
So ultimately, my grade for the Cleveland Browns is an A. They're never going to win the Super Bowl. I want them to entertain me. What did they give me? They gave me a Buckeye in Quinshon. They gave me a local player in Harold Fannin. They gave me a big, exciting linebacker prospect. And they gave me Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders as rookies in this crazy story that we're all going to get to follow. It's going to be a madhouse in Cleveland. I'm going to love that. They're never going to win a Super Bowl. Just entertain me. It's an A. It's an absolute A. Why did Shedeur Sanders fall to the 5th round? Because they had him way overvalued, for one. Not a particularly strong arm. Pretty accurate guy. He's a gamer. Definitely a quarterback, in my opinion, that should have been taken in the 2nd or 3rd round. Why did he fall from there to the 5th? I think it's 100%. Well, not 100%. There were some bad interviews, I think. I think he doesn't come off as confident. He comes off as cocky. He had the bad news conference. Couple of incidents where people could point and look and say, look, this guy's not a good teammate, which I don't think is true, but you can look at some of those incidents and see maybe somebody would think that. But then you've got the concern of, what if this isn't going well? The media is going to be insane. What if he's not ready to start and the starting quarterback's not doing good? Like, he's not good enough for us to go through all the potential of what if it's not going good. And I think that scared people away from him. They said, we'll take this guy. Nobody will be around asking 1,000 questions about why he's not starting yet. So they went a different direction in most cases. Browns saw the value and they took him. And I think that's all it is. They didn't want to deal with the noise. Most teams didn't. And that's why he dropped. Wanted to go over this graphic here. So this is every team. How many guys they got drafted? You got Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss, who we already went over. Teams with 7 players: Miami, LSU, Michigan, Alabama, and Florida. Look at the teams with 6 players: Notre Dame and Maryland. Year in and year out, there is not a Big Ten team that does less with more than Maryland. I mean, they are always up here and they always suck. 5 players, you got Penn State, and that really speaks to how many guys they got returning. UCLA, 5 players. There's another one that consistently underperforms. South Carolina, Iowa, Virginia Tech with 4 players. Colorado, Arizona, Tennessee. Tennessee had just 4 guys. Iowa State, OSU, Cal, and Syracuse. 3 players: Missouri, Texas A&M, Louisville, Boston College, Minnesota, Kansas State, USC, Auburn, Clemson, Pitt, and Rutgers. 2 players: Boise State, North Dakota State, Kentucky, TCU, UCF, Arkansas, Florida State, Tulane, Texas Tech, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Iowa, SMU, Georgia Tech, Kansas, Wisconsin. 1 player: North Carolina, NC State, Marshall, Toledo, Bowling Green, Washington State, Illinois, East Carolina, West Virginia, William and Mary, Western Kentucky, Arizona State. Don't know who that is. Utah State, Stanford. Don't know who that is. Colorado State. Don't know who that is. UTSA, Western Michigan, Michigan State, Navy, UConn. Don't know who that is. UNLV, Washington, Central Michigan, UNLV. Did I just say UNLV twice? Utah, Cincinnati, Vanderbilt, Montana, Memphis. I think I missed 4 there. Not bad. Not too bad. Let's go over Big Ten draft picks since 2014. I think this is pretty interesting. You've got Ohio State and Michigan up at the top, 96 and 79. Then you got Penn State at 62. Then you got our group that just came in from the Pac-12. You've got Oregon with 51, USC with 50, UCLA with 49, and Washington with 47. Almost dead even, the 4 of those teams. I would have thought Oregon and SC would be considerably higher than UCLA and Washington. USC was still pumping out talent even when they sucked. But to have those 4 teams right there, that's really interesting. But the next best out of the Big Ten, if we're talking old Big Ten, we're talking after Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, it's Iowa. It's Iowa, then Wisconsin, then Maryland, then Minnesota, Michigan State, Nebraska with just 23. Then Purdue, Illinois, Northwestern, Indiana, Rutgers dead last with 14. And boy, there's a whole lot of talent in New Jersey. There's a whole lot of talent in the state of New Jersey. We know that more than anybody. Fire. Anyways, guys, we got some recruiting tidbits to go over tomorrow. Buckeyes made the offensive line better as Justin Terry has been added. Justin Terry was the transfer from West Virginia, Pickerington native. He tweeted, "I'm coming home," so that means something to him, which I love. 6'5", 340, same size as Tegra, could go either way, tackle or guard. But the Buckeyes now with 15 in the offensive line room, and they want 16. So they're looking for one more. The Purdue kid who transferred was going to come visit. He is signed with Minnesota. No word on the decision from Orion Johnson. That's the Sam Houston State transfer. Defensive line, transfer Troy Pikes, came on his visit to Ohio State, went really well. He calls Ohio State the leader. He's got one more visit at South Carolina. So he's already done Georgia. Buckeyes are in pole position as he goes to South Carolina. Looking really good for him. And I was told there's a rumor amongst Georgia folk that since he's been at Georgia Southern, he is now 6'4". He's grown in college. So he's 6'4", 300 pounds. All right, now it sounded a little more interesting. Maybe his ceiling is a little higher than I gave it credit for. I've just been kind of piecing together facts of what we do know. We know when he was out of high school, what he was ranked. We know what he's done at Georgia Southern, which has not been much. Trying to figure out where does this guy gauge in the hierarchy when he walks in the door, right? He's obviously going to try to be in the mix with Ty Malone, Jason Moore, Will Smith. Where does he fit in, though? Is he going to be better than those guys? Can he be right with them? Is he going to be behind them, maybe with Jarquez Carter trying to come up? At any rate, a guy with a lot of eligibility left and a young dude. He'll be a good addition, and I think he's going to pick the Buckeyes. Who would pick South Carolina over Ohio State when they got a need at your position at Ohio State? Nobody. Nobody would. Anyway, been a busy weekend here at JUCK on Bucks. We did Friday Night Live, Saturday Night Live. You guys got to set those alarm bells and subscribe to the show so that when I pop on live, you can get that notification. Pop in and join me. The regular show will be here with you every morning at 8, but those lives, we have a lot of fun. So if you join me this weekend, I appreciate you. Please do like today's video and subscribe, and we'll talk tomorrow. JUCK on Bucks out.